I am a board game designer. That is not my full-time job because that is an impossible thing to do unless you're very lucky and very good. But outside of my full-time job, I do lots of board game design stuff. I've got one published game, got a couple others like in the pipelines, and I usually work on either puzzly Tetris style games that are very individual, figure out your own puzzles or stuff, or I like doing highly interactive bidding games. So two opposite ends of the spectrum. I don't know how that's what I ended up with, but that's what I ended up with.
It's time for an adventure in the worlds of user experience and game design. On Season 3 of the Design Thinking Games podcast, join old school UXers and aspiring game designers Michael Schofield, Tim Broadwater, and an array of quirky characters from pixelated heroes to mischievous NPCs in search of the ultimate player experience. Design thinking is a process that is applied to different types of games in this podcast. If you're wondering whether your favorite games have already come up, you can listen through the backlog at designthinkinggames.com. Now, Rapid Protobot, fire the design thinking laser.
If you rewound the time, like record scratch it back, where did this start?
My grandmother specifically played Scrabble a lot. That was like the one board game outside of Chutes and Ladders and all that sort of stuff that I really getting to play. Obviously, it was me as like a tiny kid versus a bunch of like old people. They crushed me. After that, it was video games. I think like Halo 2 was like one of the first video games that I properly played. It wasn't just like at a friend's house and played it for 5 minutes sort of thing. And then Halo 3 came out. I think what kind of kicked off the game design stuff was Halo 3 had that Forge mode. I don't know if you remember that. Halo 3 had the campaign thing, go shoot the aliens sort of stuff, but then it had the multiplayer where you can go shoot other people, and then it had Forge mode where you could make little tweaks to the maps that you were doing the multiplayer games on, so you can add some boxes where there didn't used to be boxes and sort of stuff. I don't think they thought too far ahead because it was literally just plop a box down and it would just physics object itself and just fall over and be there. And then people figured out all of the bugs that let you merge those boxes into the ground and merge them into each other. So all of a sudden people could just make all sorts of crazy levels where all of these boxes are fit together in like big arenas. And so people went from just, I'm going to add a rocket launcher to the map to full-on map design in the most complicated way possible. You had to merge two boxes. You had to put a bunch of them next to each other, set them to spawn 30 seconds into the game or whatever, reload the game, plop some boxes down in between, and then the other ones would spawn and be in the same spot. Anyway, so that was my, I think, first dip into game design, really.
There's always been like modding communities, right? But Forge was like produced by Bungie for players, and it had a great deal of support. And I think the subsequent Halos had iterations on Forge.
They made it
because it became like better. A thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Forge probably spawned a ton of game designers.
I'm sure, yeah. I definitely spent more time building levels than like playing them, which is the same thing nowadays. I definitely spend more time designing board games than I do playing them.
Which came first, working with video games or working with paper prototyping, card or tabletop games, or both? Or
definitely video games. I didn't really find out about the world of board games until college. That's a lie. In middle school or high school, one of my friends and his dad pulled me aside one weekend and asked my parents if they could play D&D with me. And so I remember setting up my D&D character in a Denny's. I didn't know what was going on. I just got dragged into it. So that was when I did a little bit of thinking about making campaigns and stuff.
How much TTRPGs, like tabletop, do you play, and which ones?
So I played 4th edition, I think, for ages, all like through a big chunk of high school. And then I dropped off because that friend group, people went to college or went other places, etc. And then I didn't get back into RPGs for a while until later in college when Blades in the Dark was the big one that I played. Actually, that was past college. Yeah, Blades in the Dark is my favorite, I think, so far. And 10 Candles. 10 Candles is really good.
So the idea of 10 candles, and Connor, maybe you can correct me where I'm wrong, is that you're in a dim room, you have tea lights, like 10 candles, literally.
10 candles.
And there is a very rules light RPG mechanic system where you all as a group are collaboratively telling the story. The key is that none of you will survive. Like, it is about telling a great story about the end. Like, the lights go off, they're gone or whatever. And basically at certain narratively important moments, you blow one of the tea light candles out and the game's over when they're all blown out. And it gets really atmospheric.
And whenever you want to use a trait to fix a roll or do a big thing, you've written all your traits on note cards, you literally burn them.
Oh.
You light it on fire, put it in the middle of the table. That trait is gone.
You can't use it anymore. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
We should try to get like an advertiser sponsorship. I'll share it with you. I have the PDF. But in terms of like game design, there's probably a lot you can learn there just around the usability of the rules, because it's easy to pick up, it's easy to teach. But also, if you can get people together and you can do this and you're cool with setting it up like semi-Ouija, the atmosphere that emerges when you really do it right is so special.
Very cool. How do you get to publishing your first game?
I'm not like formally trained in game design or anything, and I don't think it's super necessary, or it might be helpful, but I don't think I've met anyone who's got a game design degree that is like leagues better or whatever. They might have more academic insight, which is always useful and interesting, but I think you can self-teach yourself. No, so I was playing a lot of board games in college. There was like a weekly board game night at the local game store sort of thing. And I always like building things. Like whenever I see something, I always want to take a crack at doing it myself. So after playing enough board games, I was like, I should probably give this a go. And I tackled it at first by just writing the rule documents of the game ideas that I had. That's a terrible idea, or at least for me. They went nowhere. I had these big documents of all the rules, and then it's just like, what do you do with this? So that kind of failed. I managed to make one prototype, and it didn't work, and I didn't know what to do with it, and so I kind of gave up. But I had been just reading lots of blogs and game design posts, so I was just absorbing as much as I could. It hadn't really kicked in yet, but it was in the back of my head. And then I dropped it for a little bit because it felt like it wasn't going anywhere and life happened. Like I graduated college and needed to find a job. I kept having ideas and writing them down, being like, I want to do a game. And it just, again, did not go anywhere. And then my partner, she was taking a class where she needed to write an essay. And I was hanging out at her place and didn't have anything with me except my phone while she was just writing her essay. And I had a game design idea. And so I spent the entire couple hours for sitting there jotting down a whole new game idea. And then I was like, okay, that can't have been a waste of time. I can't have just done the same thing again and write up a whole rules document and do nothing. So I was very lucky to have some housemates at the time who were also very into board games and were down to just help me playtest this very broken version. So I think I finally realized, like, oh, I should just do the worst version of this game possible. Doesn't matter. Don't keep thinking about it. Just slap it on the table. It'll break. It's fine. And so that's what I did. It was like very scrappy. I grabbed some cubes and some paper, and that was it. And then from there, having that group that was like, they always say, oh, don't play this with your friends, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, as long as your friends are down to like critique, you're fine.
They'll tell you to your face, exactly.
Yeah, and then it just finally went through iterations. And I think as soon as I started doing those like early iterations, that's when it all clicked. And I was like, oh, I can make changes, and I shouldn't start with the full thing, and I should just keep changing it over and over and over and over and over. And at that time, I still wasn't like, oh, I should publish this. There was a point where my partner was like, do you want to do it? Do you want to publish this? Is this why you're doing this? And I was like, maybe. I hadn't actually thought about that part. Like, I knew it was a thing you could do, but I hadn't thought of it as like a thing I could do. So that was when I was like, oh, I should enter this into this Cardboard Edison competition. Cardboard Edison is a contest or award for finding the best unpublished game. It's very good as like a like a deadline for yourself and getting something done. And also the things you have to submit to it are the same things that you have to essentially submit if you're going to submit to a publisher, or even the same things you've got to think about if you're going to try and kickstart it. You need a rule book, you need a video, you need a game. So I entered that as I should just do this because I need a deadline. And then I somehow ended up winning, which is a bit strange. I thought there was going to be like 30 people entering. And there was like a couple hundred.
Oh, wow.
So that was a good experience. And from there, that kind of kicked everything off a bit. And basically, if you want to publish a board game, you either have to do it yourself, either fund the money yourself or kickstart the money, or you can sign it with the publisher, which if you want to sign it with the publisher, you have to have the whole game done, essentially, ready to go. You don't need art. You don't need any of that stuff. Clip art's totally fine. Just get the gist across. And then you pitch it around and see who's interested, which is a whole process. There's lots of quirks with the game design pitching industry. It's a ton of networking. You have to go meet people. You got to go to conventions. So you got to have time and money for conventions. Anyway, don't have to get too much into that. I got really lucky with Pandasaurus because they actually took pitches online at the time. This was pre-pandemic, so most people were taking pitches in person, and I was like, I don't really have the time or energy to go to a convention to maybe pitch a game. I'm not spending $1,000 on that because all the conventions are on the opposite coast from me. But Pandasaurus was taking pitches online. Once they're like, oh, this looks cool, send us a physical copy. That's the cost, and at $20 to ship a game, it's fine. That's how that happened. They just posted on Facebook that they were looking for games, and then I submitted to their forum. And then a lot of months later, they were like, we want to sign it. And so they signed it. And then cool. They kind of took over from there.
That's very cool. It seems like in very many ways it's a home run. But I guess a lot of that was dependent on doing it and making it happen. And it sounds like there was maybe hesitancy or blocker there. But once you did, it just started rolling.
And a lot of luck that like things fell into place. Like luck that the right judges who liked that type of game looked at it in the Cardboard Edison Award. Luck that I had the time at the time to spend a ton of time fixing up the rule book so that when it got to the award, it was good to go, and just all sorts of other stuff. But yeah.
Are there a lot of these kind of awards? I guess is the first question. The other question is, compared to, you said pre-pandemic to now, are there a lot of people who are just taking submissions online to publish your games? Or is it come back to like you still have to do it in person?
So first question, yes, there are a bunch of different awards. I think Cardboard Edison is like one of the bigger ones. BGG has lots of little fun forum ones. Once I won that one, I was like, I probably don't need this anymore, because I kind of see Cardboard Edison as like an opportunity for people to get out there. I don't need that because I've done that now, so I don't want to take up that space.
It's like a certification, right? So it's, hey, like I have some bona fides, and now I don't have to go chase them anymore, right? It's on my LinkedIn. It's on my website.
You still gotta chase people. There's too many board game designers. There aren't really enough publishers for the number of game designers, and then self-publishing is its own nightmare. But it is like a step. It's like you get your foot in the door. Or the door has been opened and you can put your foot in if you can get the chance.
So like step 1, play test a lot. Step 2, win the Cardboard Edison Award.
Really the step 2, this is the big thing that I think has leveled me up in quotes the most, is in the pandemic when everything hit, and I was about to go to Origins and I was about to do all the networking, and that all got thrown out the window. But then a bunch of Discord communities popped up because everyone had to. And I just joined a bunch of those and met a ton of people. And that is where I really got the ball rolling, because I found some groups less good, others much better. You try out a bunch of different groups and then find the one that's good, and you just get into a rhythm of playtesting, networking with people, chatting with people, seeing lots of different types of games, seeing how they fix their problems. Just that like community aspect, that was huge.
The Thief is a Dungeons & Dragons actual play with just one player, Cece Way.
Getting more information, I think, is pretty safe. And I can't let Osmond rot.
and a full cast of NPCs supported with soundscapes.
This isn't some pickpocket or killer or slumlord. These are important people. These are the kinds of people who, if they get your name, you cannot evade.
The original world is grim, and it is unlikely the thief will survive. Created by Michael Schofield.
Listen for The Thief, an audio drama, anywhere you find podcasts and on the web at thiefpodcast.com.
One of the things that you helped me out with, one of the things that was an aha moment, like working with you during the mentorship, was really a process. You just need a process. And it's really like you can create this Kanban board of columns of statuses, and it can work and flex and be whatever is good for you. But then make sure that you can always add to it. If you're out walking and you're like, oh crap, I got an idea, you can kind of put it down. And then, so that was very useful.
To me, I was like, oh, this is a common sense product development process that I can imagine that folks trying to get into game design without that background, like it might actually be like a mind-blowing thing of just how simple and lo-fi the process can be.
Yeah, and I think that was the big aha moment for me. So I read this book that another game designer, Emma Larkins, was talking about reading, called From Chaos to Creativity. Here's the general idea. In fact, you should probably have buckets. You can call those buckets whatever you want. I got a bunch of sleep issues, and so I'm tired all the time, so I don't necessarily always have the energy to do playtesting, which involves talking to people and being very social. So I bucketed them based on type of energy required, which is how mine came out, which is basically like my noodle on things is one bucket because I can just do that lying on the couch. Then there's the like, I'm going to put something on the table and think about this in a more focused, concrete way, but I'm still doing it by myself. Then there's the, I want to do game design stuff, but I don't want to think about it. That's my prototype step. I know I need to make cards with numbers on them and symbols. I don't have to think. I just have to do the thing, and I get to do some crafts. So that's that kind of energy bucket, right? Put on a podcast and just make some cards. And then there's the social part of let me playtest this. And then there's the like back burner part where it's let me just put this in the back of my head for a while and not think about it. That's my like telling myself do not think about this for a while because it's too annoying right now. And then it goes back to the front or it bounces it back and forth. So that's how I've bucketed it. And that's the one I told you because I think the buckets work outside of my thing. But it is easy because then you can be like, these are my playtestable games. I've got 5 of them. Cool. Playtest night's coming up. Put those 5 games in my bag.
The way you've organized that like really lends itself to having multiple projects at a time. So you can just pick it up. And then are you generally like deeply concerned about a specific project reaching a finish line before another one?
So I think this was my other aha moment. For the longest time when I was working on Umbervia, people were like, you got to work on other games. If you really want to develop as a game designer, you should probably work on other games. This isn't to say you must work on other games. If you have your one game that you care about, go for it. Do it. Yeah. But if you do want to like make more games, working on one of them at a time is like a recipe for failure, in my opinion, mostly because it'll take so long for the learnings of one game to catch up to the next. And also you'll burn yourself out.
Do you keep a healthy number in the churn? I'm always kind of working on 3 or 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. I got 10 right now. I
gotta go pitch some games. I'll just get out the old game backpack and these I have 10 to choose from.
I think it's worked nicely for me because they're all at different stages, right? Some of them are like very early ideas, and learnings from one game can bounce into the next. And if I don't want to think about one game, I can keep doing game because I love game design, but I don't necessarily love working on that one game, on that one small problem that it's stuck on. but I still want to do game design. Yeah, so that's helped me a lot.
I love it. No, it's super helpful and it clicks. Once you did it, it's holy shit. I've been doing this in software for years. Why didn't I think about this in any process? I think it's one of those things now. I actually know like someone who I work with who her and her husband have a retro at the end of the year. And what they do in this retro is specifically like, how did we take vacations together? Did we do enough things together alone? Did we do enough new things? What were the troubles of the year? And like they really Kanban to some degree, not their relationship, and just do that kind of thing. And it's very interesting. What's going on now with you? Are you just always, if it's a side hustle, you're just always working on games and then just always pitching them? And
yeah, pitching is one of those categories in the board that is the most energy. I've got a game that is with a publisher that should be getting announced sometime this year. Part of me is I'm tired and don't have the energy, so maybe I'll just wait for that one to come out, hope it does well, and maybe that'll be my little boost. But in the meantime, yeah, I've got 5 games that I think are like done. And so I'm casually pitching those around. You asked earlier about are people still doing online pitches and stuff. Mostly, I think a lot of it seems to have gone back to the best way to talk to people is in person, which is frustrating because I don't I've got the money to do it, but do I want to drop $1,000+ on flying to the East Coast to maybe get them to maybe look at it? It's nice actually having a library of this many games. I have a website that I post them all on. So whenever I do send a game to someone, I can be like, here's my game. And then they'll be like, well, I'm not interested in that one. And then they click on the homepage and look at all the projects and they're like, oh, but this one looks cool. So that's actually the other great thing about not rushing it is I can just build up a library of games and then I can shop them all around at the same time because what publishers want changes constantly, right? You might go to a Eurogame publisher and they're like, actually, we're getting into party games now. And those party games will come out in 2 years' time because that's our release schedule. So yeah, having just a bunch on hand is helpful.
So I'm assuming you're talking about connorwake.com, your site. On the homepage, you have a bunch of images, a square grid of all the games. Some have a parenthetical published after them. Some have a parenthetical signed. And then the other ones are not. So my assumption there is that when you're pitching games, you can just refer to the other ones. Published is, of course, published. What's signed?
Signed is publisher has signed the game and is intending to publish it. I'm currently just working on it in the background. So I put that there just so that no one asks me about it. I don't have nice cover art to put out there yet.
Yeah.
But I'm not pitching.
The final skinning, I guess, this is something I'm very curious about with publishing. So you mentioned something earlier, which is, you can have clip art and you can just have the elevator pitch and all the assets ready. But how much does it get changed between that and the publishing? Can they skin it however they want? It's hey, Hedge Mage, we're actually going to make it Cog Mage or something else and change it. And can they I'm just wondering how much happens there, variance artistically and company-wise.
It will 100% depend on the publisher. Pandasaurus took the game, did their whole thing, and then I found out about it mostly later. They didn't fully reskin it. They did some tweaks and added flowers. Mine was much more spooky ritual. They made it spooky flower ritual. Hedge Mage, which is working on with publisher, they're keeping the theme because it's mostly an abstract game, but it's also pretty tied to the theme. I don't know how you would do it other than it's a maze, and magic mazes make the most sense because these hedges are popping out of the ground. So they're keeping it, but they actually are doing a bunch of game design mechanic tweaks. Because, for example, I had a scoring system that was called Gnomes, which is basically the amount of chaos in your garden. The more gnomes there are, the more chaotic it is. You don't want lots of chaotic gnomes in your garden. But it was just a point system. This publisher has turned it into gnomes that are on the board running around and made it into a real part of the game. So it depends on the publisher and what the game needs. They'll usually work with you. For Hedge Mage, they've been keeping me in the loop the whole time, and I've been doing playtests.
So what's there? It's your videos and your, I think, sell sheets, your sell sheets are great, and of what you've presented to them, and then they can go from there. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the stuff on the website is first look. If that's interesting, they'll ask to either play a digital version or get a copy shipped to them, and then from there they'll play it a bunch. play it with their team, play it with their friends, other people, etc. Like the person I pitched Hedge Mage to, they've got some like retailer friends. So they play it with them to see, would this work in the retail market in your store? And then if they like that, then they will maybe sign it. Or they might be like, I don't think it's quite there yet. You might need to make some changes, etc. But for Hedge Mage, they were just like, no, they played it a few times, played it with people, and then signed it.
May I ask your criteria for like, when do you feel like, okay, I can make a video for this and I can put a sell sheet up on the website now?
Originally, I thought you had to do everything perfect, do 100 unguided playtests, playtest it 500 times. I think that's true if you're self-publishing. But for pitching to a publisher, my cutoff criteria is basically, am I confident that this is the core of the game? If I'm like, oh, I don't think the numbers are quite balanced and we might need to tweak stuff, I don't care about that stuff anymore. That's the publisher's job. And if it ever comes down to, I could make the game more complicated or I could make the goals a little bit easier, that's also the publisher's job. As soon as it comes to those like audience questions, I know my main audience of the main type of game, but as soon as it comes to the very picky audience questions and the very picky product questions, that's when I stop, because I'll spend a bunch of time making all of the goals super complicated and they'll be like, we don't like this goal system, we love everything else, and they scrap it, right? So as long as the gist is in there, and more than the gist, as long as like you can see the game and the framework and it's functional and it's enjoyable, fun, whatever, as long as all that works, if people are like, oh, I think you should tweak some things, then I'm like, okay, we can pitch it now.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
The core of the play, the feel, the strategy, balance, and it's just, this is the game, basically. Now, if you want to skin it with cowboys or like plants or zombies, whatever, the core is, this is how it's going to play. So.
I do develop it. Like, I do make sure it's all, most of the edges are rounded off. I just don't explore too much past that because, yeah. It's just a waste of time, and I'm working on too many things, and I'm already not getting paid for this, so I'm not paid for this until it gets signed, and then it comes out 3 years later, and then it maybe does well. So yeah, this is just for signing it with publishers. If I was going to self-publish it, I'd 100% do way more work. I'd actually hire a developer to like be a second pair of eyes and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
How do people get connected with you? How do they find out more about your games?
I'm on Twitter, as long as Twitter lasts, at Connor J. Wake. I'm not the best at social media stuff, so like I know everyone's moving, but I'm going to wait till we figure out where to actually move to. But mostly I'm on Discord. You'll find me in the Break My Game Discord. Same thing. I'm Connor Wake and stuff like that. But if you want to like actually get in contact with me at Connor J. Wake on Twitter, is probably the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, yeah, ConnorWake.com has my games. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I'm game. Let's play.
Okay, agile methodology, waterfall, or lean?
I don't know what those are. UX FMK is the hottest UX book on this side of the internet. Tim Broadwater, our very own certified UX unicorn, takes the all-too-familiar premise of the original FMK game and wrote a book that invites you to take a deep dive into UX, what doesn't work, and how royally things can be screwed up.
Listen on Audible or pick up UX FMK anywhere books are sold, but especially Amazon.
Rapid fire, no time to rest. Put your knowledge to the test. From gaming to UX, it's all a fair game. Answer right and you learn your fame. D12, D12, roll the dice, answer well. D12, D12, will you triumph or fail? With 12 questions and a whole lot of fun. D12's the game that's number one.
what this is like we have 12 questions that are sort of irreverent, that are in the style of inside the actor's studio, or like Barbara Walters, like if you were a tree, and then like we can roll a die to randomly select, but we're always going to make sure that if you roll the same number, we'll just pick a different question. So it starts getting arbitrary. That's it. It's just 12 questions. We have, and whenever you're ready, you can roll the die and tell us the number, and it'll pick from a little randomizer.
4.
You said 4?
4.
What is your color mode? RGB, hexadecimal, RGBA, Pantone, CMYK.
I mean, CMYK, because I print way too much stuff out. So, yeah. I recently had to help a friend who exclusively does web design stuff convert a bunch of files over to CMYK, and that was fun.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. They also got to learn about cut lines and bleed and margins.
Ooh, ow.
Do any of that before?
Oh, dude, I grew up in the print world, so yeah.
Like, where's your alpha layer? Like, I don't understand.
Doing everything in Figma, and Figma is cool for web design stuff, I guess, but it can't do nice paths around things easily. Because apparently they spent like hours trying to get like cut lines around things. And I was like, I just redid the whole thing in like an hour in Illustrator because
oh my God,
paths around the right margins and everything. So, anyway, that was not quite the question, but CMYK.
No, it's perfect. All right, give us another roll. Whenever you're feeling like done with it, just roll the next one.
That was again a 4. Hold on. 9.
Describe in detail your favorite dice. Like, do you like just love a D6? Do you have like a really cool metal one? What is your favorite dice and why?
Do I have it with me up here? Okay, I don't have it with me up here, but I got close enough. So I've got these frosty blue D6.
Oh, wow.
They're slightly translucent. They got a little matte finish on them. They look like frosted glass.
Yeah, it's like they look dangerously edible. All right.
Yeah. That I really like that kind of off electric blue kind of color, especially in combination with like gray or black or anything like that. So any dice like that is great. Also, I really like D6. They're so simple. I don't need any of the D20 stuff. Whatever. Yeah. So a nice frosty cyan D6.
Nice.
Perfect. Roll 2 D6s.
Okay. 11.
11. What is your D&D alignment?
Oh, God. Probably chaotic neutral. When I did play D&D, I was definitely probably put on my GM's nerves because whenever I purposely went and got myself bit by a vampire because I thought it would be interesting, and I wanted vampire powers, and so that confused the vampire because I just willingly walked in and got bitten. So yeah, and then I stuck random magical objects, like these magical gems, got stuck into my character's eyes one time because it seemed like it would do something cool. So so pretty chaotic. My GM always had to make it semi-functional so I didn't just kill myself. So yeah, my character turned into this horrible amalgamation of magical items, vampire nonsense. It's good. Also as a shapeshifter. So yeah.
There you go. All the things. All the things.
It's like Katamari, but if you were a person.
Yes. I think I was covered in like beetle exoskeleton by the end of it. So yeah. I don't know how that works with vampire teeth, but you know.
It's amazing. All right, give us another whenever you're ready.
Oh yeah. 3.
A 3. Okay. What is a game that everybody should play at least once?
I've got 2. The Mind, because it so perfectly encapsulates the whole. Just games are about interacting with people, and the rules are there to just facilitate that. And yes, the Mind does. For people who don't know the Mind, it's a deck of cards 1 through 100. You deal out like 3 cards to all players, and then you must play them in order without talking to each other. That's the whole game.
Oh wow!
And it's a co-op game, so you're all on the same team trying to complete that, and you get more and more cards every round as you do better. But it's just like looking at everyone and being like, should I go? Should you go? And then everyone starts like leaning backwards or starting to go, and you're like, oh, hang on. And then there's this perfect moment where like someone plays like the 36, and then the 37 gets slapped down, and then the 38, and you're like, how the hell did we do that? How did we perfectly time all of that without talking to each other? But it works.
Wow.
Some people think it's not a game, whatever. I think it's great. So I think everyone should play that.
That's interesting. It's like there's like a whole category of like games as social experiment.
Yeah, exactly. It's so simple and perfectly distilled of just like games. They're about setting up interactions and experiences with other people. So yeah. And then what's my other one? Okay, I don't think everyone should actually play this one, but I think it's a ridiculous game. Roads and Boats from Splotter. It is nonsense. If you look up the cover and you care about graphic design and fonts, you'll love it. Wait till you pulled it up so you can see how bad it is. It's bad in like the best way. It's from like 1990 something. It does kind of everything wrong in a game in a way. Like, it is so slow. It is so fiddly. It's got simultaneous turns that aren't really simultaneous. It's got take that. None of the stuff belongs to you. You've got a whole mine of gold and you're packing it up on your donkey. Someone could walk over and pick it up because none of it's yours. It's just, it's a weird game, but it is kind of great. And it's this ridiculous sandbox. So I think it's an example of like, you can do all the stuff wrong in a game design according to traditional like what is right and wrong about games and still have it come out really great. It is a really clunky game and you got to really slog through it and you got to print out a whole separate sheet, but I think it's really cool.
And it's like I just pulled up its like its cover and like its logo like it kind of like hurts to look at. It's like
you have the end, etc. Expansion part 2 where they tied the.
Oh my god, dude! It reminds me of like what is the game that they played on Parks and Recreation, the Cones of Dunshire.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. For people, you should look up the cover, but it's basically Roads and Boats, and you know how Roads and Boats have an O and an A. Well, what if we used them both the O and the A in each word? No, that's not it. There's one O and A shared between both words, but all the other letters.
It's like an R&B stacked and a D&T stacked, but the O, A, and S are shared.
And then the expansion is and etc. And they loop the and through everything, and it's just nonsense.
Oh, nice.
But it's also just a stupid, like, they do lots of little commentary, just poking fun at capitalism stuff. So that's it. New number, not new dice. 12.
12. What is the most? I guess you can pick either of these. What is the most like usable, enjoyable game you've ever played? What game has like the best like user experience to you?
You know, that's tough because I don't think a lot of board games do a good job of this. Let's see. I mean, there's lots of very usable things, individual things in games that I can think of.
Yeah.
But I don't think I know of a game that has pulled off everything, at least in the like hobby sphere. Scythe's whole upgrade system of you remove a cube from the top row and add it to the bottom row, and the slots are the perfect size for the cube. And then when you remove the cube in the top, it reveals a thing, and you add it to the bottom and it covers up a thing. Just makes that whole upgrade process super easy, right? Move a cube.
Wow.
Like a bunch of different things change. The cost goes down and the reward goes up, and it's clearly demarked that you've upgraded it. And it feels good because you've revealed something. I think a lot of games kind of copy that nowadays. One other little thing, actually. Framework has a cool system where it's a drafting game. You draft tiles, everyone goes around, picks a tile, adds it to their tableau. But what's cool about it is, you know how usually you got to figure out turn order and like changing who's going first? And that's annoying because you forget who just went and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't do that, you don't change who goes first, right? Which means someone's always got the advantage. Framework does this by having one more thing than a number of players to draft, which means the first person goes, you go around, everyone picks one thing, and then the first person picks the thing that was left over. This means they get a disadvantage for going first because then they're stuck with something that everyone else gave them. And then it automatically shifts who's the first player because you just keep going around and you just refill it back up to one more than the number of players.
Oh, yeah.
So automatically, turn order gets fixed. You fixed first player advantage by giving them a disadvantage, and you don't even have to worry about it. It just happens. So,
oh, wow.
The graphic design in that game, not so great, but that part, good. Okay. 3.
In the event that you get in the event that you get in a fight, when you're attacking, are you using like strength or dexterity or another stat?
I would definitely be turning invisible and just tripping them and leaving. That's the kind of fight I would have.
So a dexterity-based stealth check. Okay.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Nice.
9.
What is your reaction when you hear the phrase UI/UX?
That covers a lot of ground, and I'm never sure what people are actually referring to.
Are you looking for like a UI/UX designer?
I don't do front end stuff anymore. I'm a back end engineer, partly because I don't know. I can't. I like all the numbers and being in the background doing stuff. I don't like the front end. Anyway, yeah. I just know it's a lot and it's complicated. Because I mean, user interface easy, and then throw in user experience, just everything to do with a user touching the thing. Oh my god.
Nice. We are past the halfway point. That's 7th. This will be the 8th question.
2.
Theater of the mind or maps and miniatures?
Theater of the mind. I used to be a maps and miniatures person. This is weird. So I design a lot of like polyomino, puzzly, fiddly.
Yeah, you games. Literally were talking about the meeple that you 3D print.
Yeah. So I do all that sort of stuff, but it's like I'm a software engineer, but I don't necessarily I like software engineering, but it's not like my thing. But I like doing it, but I don't like software engineering as a whole. Like I will never work on, and I feel like I'm kind of the same way. Like with my games, I really like the types of games I make, but I also spend too much time with them, so I need to do other things. So I really like taking a break from that and going in theater of the mind RPG stuff. Like that's great. Yeah, I don't need more fiddling around with miniatures on the table.
That's interesting. That's how I am too. I'm theater of the mind too. I never really thought of it as just like that's literally all that I can handle at the moment. In my free time. I need to use something I don't use at work, which is my imagination.
I like doing lots of different things. So I got it covered already. That's an 11.
11. This is my favorite question. You fail your last death save. What are your final words?
Oops.
That's like,
I love it. It's appropriate.
Yeah. No, I'm not a very profound person or anything. I'd just be annoyed.
It's just a deep sigh.
Yeah, just okay.
Okay, final 3.
7.
What game is a guilty pleasure?
That's a tough one. I don't think I have a guilty pleasure game because I don't know. They're all kind of guilty pleasures. They're all games.
It's hard when you're just like when you have like no shame and you're like, I like what I like. It's hard.
Yeah, they're all good. Like playtesting other people's games that are like, that's the thing I do the most. That when people are like, "What's the board game you played the most?" It's not published games. I swear, it's like 3/4 of my time playing board games are spent playing like weird little.
Do you enjoy that? Like because I can see because you're playtesting games that are most likely broken, like in some degree, right? Like so, but is it just like you're like, do you like it? And like I'm just kind of curious. Like, what about it? Yeah,
which do you like more, code reviews or game playtesting another person's game?
The biggest thing is always the ego of the other person that you're like, playtesting their game. That's the make or break. So I think the biggest thing is just finding a good group. So once you found a good group, it's all good. It's all just ideas are spinning. It's
all part of like it's like an extension of that whole like Halo 3 Forge modding community. It's like you find a bunch of people and you guys are like hacking on a thing together. You're playing it and be like, oh, it'd be cool if we could like go counterclockwise or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. The one I play the most, it's Into the Breach. I've played that game way too much.
Into the Breach.
Yeah. Very board gamey. I've tried to make the board game version of it a few times. I've failed. 8.
An 8. Oh, interesting. What is your favorite card game?
Yeah, I'm so bad at just remembering games that I've played. I don't know if this is my favorite, but it's one I've played the most. Herbacious.
Oh yeah, I've never played it. I've seen it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those fuzzy push your luck, but against the other players around the table. Because a lot of push your luck games are like, you can count the probability. You've got a 3/4 chance of failing right now. Whereas Herbacious is like, well, how much does the other person want the thing? Because that's your probability that it's going to bust right now.
Yeah.
And I really like that stuff. So I think Herbacious is really good for that. Yeah.
That's good to know because I've kind of always wondered what people thought about it. And I generally tend to go away from 1 to 4 player games because I always just want the opportunity of like bigger games. But I've always been curious.
Like the game. Tiny as well. So they've got a pocket edition. Yeah.
Travel. Nice.
Easy. Yeah.
All right. Final question.
It's an 11.
What is your what's your go-to genre? Alternate history, fantasy, cyberpunk, goth, horror. What's your go-to genre?
Yeah, probably sci-fi fantasy with like goth leaning, I would say. Which is perfect because the Locked Tomb series is that exactly. So like sci-fi magic necromancers in space. Yeah, that's my vibe. Yeah.
Get ready for the game that's hot. D12's what you've got. 12 questions gotta be quick. Can you handle it? Can you stick?
as the listeners may know, last year, we were doing a Patreon, and if you supported us on Patreon, you got the episodes ad-free and early, which was cool.
Anyone who's been listening with us from season 1 and who will enjoy season 3 know that we are iterating a lot. And one of the big things we're iterating on is what we're spending time on. There's probably a whole interesting episode or side thing about why we chose to back off Patreon. But we backed off Patreon. We would love it if people would donate to us.
Please head over there and support us if you like. We're going to put some content and stuff there, but it's not going to be exclusive.
Previously on Design Thinking LARPing.
Oh, you brought us something.
Playtest. Prototype. Playtest. Destroy.
What is this? It's the LARPers rules?
This is it. The final battle.
Design Thinking LARPing is a story about heroism. The script is written by a poorly trained AI, and it is performed by your poorly trained heroes. Enjoy!
Are you sure we're ready for this?
We have to be. Rapid Protobot, what's the plan?
Prototype. Event execute.
Our heroes, Tim, Michael, and Rapid Protobot, charge into battle. Meta, gaining their way through the LARPers. Swords clashing. Shields slamming.
I feel ridiculous.
Now you know how they feel.
At least we're ridiculous together.
That's the point.
Are we LARPers?
Now you understand.
I think we are. Yeah, this isn't right. We have to stop. LARPers are gamers too. Stop. Everyone stop.
Tim, end this chaos.
Find out in the next episode of Design Thinking Games the fate of our heroes, Tim, Michael, and, of course, Rapid Protobot. The most delightful of the three. This story continues.
Thank you for listening and connecting with Design Thinking Games on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. You can also check out designthinkinggames.com to request topics, ask questions, or see what else is going on. Until next time, game on. Any final thoughts for our listeners, Rapid Protobot?